So no, it's not your responsibility to take on my feelings or try to fix my feeling, because that's not your job and you really can't do that. If you do that, it's really not fixed, because I'm gonna have to come back to you again to get you to fix it. But offering those types of supports are really helpful.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Marriage Matters. This is a podcast where we talk about everything relationships. So if you're watching for the very first time, my name is Glenn Coleman, and I'm joined, as always, by my beautiful wife,
Tanya Coleman.
It seems like I always catch you by surprise.
Because you go into this elaborate thing, and I was like, okay, is he going to do that today?
Oh, okay. Yeah. My bad. Anyway, we come to you every week giving you tips and tricks on just to make your relationships better, whether that's your marriage, your relationship with your kids, whatever. You know, we talk about a little bit about everything. So this week, I want to talk about, I just want to kind of go right into this. So I guess we'll call it What I Said, What You Heard.
Yeah. What
I said, what you heard. Oftentimes, I think in our relationships, what we say often, well, I'll just say it this way. When we hear as the receiver of a message, what we hear, what we receive, what we observe is always filtered through a number of things.
Sure.
It's filtered through our past. It's filtered through some of our past experiences. It could be filtered through the day that you had. It could be filtered through a previous relationship. So it's like we have all these things going on. And sometimes when we hear something, the interpretation may get lost in the hearing. And something that was said just to be said can be taken as maybe a put down, or maybe a critique or what have you. And it wasn't meant that way. So I want to kind of talk about that. And now I don't think that we can give you anything to change your filter. You have to do the work to change your filter. And if the filter that you have, and when I say filter, I hope you guys understand what I'm saying. What's a better word for?
Well, I think it would be your perspective, the way that you process, or your why behind why you hear things the way that you hear things, or do things the way that you do things, which has a lot to do with ego, but we won't get into all of that.
Yeah. So we're not talking about, so you have to do that work. You have to identify why you always feel like when people tell you something. Like, here's a great example. I know people who just have a hard time with correction. And anytime you tell them anything, it's like they feel like you're fussing at them or correcting them. And some of that has to do, most likely has to do with what?
Childhood. It goes back to instead of the inner critic, there's this, it's kind of like the person who had the most impact on your life, how they spoke to you or treated you. You typically are, if those wounds have not been healed, you're still processing through those things. And so many people still struggle with that. Yeah.
So we're not gonna, you have to do the work to change your filter. Right. I'll just do that. I just want you to be aware of this from a person speaking and from a person receiving, because that has to do with a lot. So I'll just bring up, so there was an incident. You want to say what happened, or you want me to tell the incident? The refrigerator.
We can kind of share. So Glenn, I don't know, this was the last week sometime, you were walking through the kitchen and you were like, hey, what'd you clean the refrigerator with?
Yeah, I was getting water.
Okay.
So I was really close to the refrigerator.
Right.
And I just noticed that there were some smudges on the refrigerator. Right. And I could tell it was from
wiping.
From wiping.
Right.
And I think I didn't even ask. Did I ask you what you cleaned it with, or did I just say?
No, you asked me.
Okay.
Or you said, "Oh, I know." Yeah, you did. You said, "I know." Try cleaning the refrigerator with alcohol because it, will clean it better, without the smudges. And not immediately, but I'm thinking, okay, yeah, I know it has smudges because I cleaned it actually with the Clorox wipe. Now we have a stainless steel refrigerator. That's not necessarily what you clean it with, but I did it. Hey, we're in COVID. So I'm still like Lysoling and Clorox wiping everything. And so I cleaned it with the Clorox wipe with the intent to go back and clear up the smudges with what I usually use to clean it that doesn't leave smudges. But after processing it, I was like, I felt bad about it, like not intentionally. And I don't even think I really thought on it hard, but I still walked away from the conversation feeling a little critiqued or disappointed, as if I didn't please you. Mm-hmm. Like the way that I cleaned the refrigerator didn't please you. And I think I did come back immediately and explain to you how I had cleaned it.
Dropped off Bethany
to school. Yeah. After I had cleaned, how I had cleaned the refrigerator and my reason why I cleaned the refrigerator. And I kind of was processing on my drive home, like, why did you feel bad about that? That's not even a big deal. But my internal person heard, you're not doing a good job keeping the house clean. Mm-hmm. And like went way over there.
Yeah. and I knew when I told you, when I said it and I heard your response, mm-hmm. I was like, I knew that's how you took it.
Heard it. Right.
And I don't know if it was on purpose or I just didn't want to, I didn't say anything.
Right. You didn't try to fix it for me.
And then you came back and you said, I realized that, I basically what you said. I thought you were saying. So in other words, like our title said, what I said was, and here in my mind, this is how I thought. Mm-hmm. In my mind was, I see she's probably working hard to keep this refrigerator clean. I know it's hard to keep clean because of the material that it's made out of. Mm-hmm. I remember this one time I used alcohol mm-hmm. to clean, because I used alcohol after I shaved to clean my mirror, and it does a really good job, rubbing mm-hmm. alcohol, mm-hmm. right? So I cleaned I cleaned, well, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But I cleaned the refrigerator one time. I was cleaning up and I was like, you know what? I bet you the rubbing alcohol would do a great job. And it did. And even sometimes when I use the cleaner that we were supposed to clean the refrigerator mm-hmm. with, it still leaves the smudges. Mm-hmm. And when I used the rubbing alcohol, it cleaned it, and it kills, it's rubbing alcohol.
It does.
You know what I'm saying? It's like you two birds with one stone, right? And so in my mind, I'm like, let me give her this great tip and trick, mm-hmm. right, that I've learned when cleaning the refrigerator. Mm-hmm. But that's not the way she received it.
Right.
And so I'm just saying that to say, how many other times does that happen mm-hmm. in relationships? And it's important. And I guess maybe because we've been working really hard at this growth thing, mm-hmm. working to get better, because the tendency most of the time is when you get defensive, mm-hmm. then I need to get defensive too.
Right. Defend yourself.
Because I want to defend what I said, mm-hmm. right? But it all goes back to understanding what my motive was. And my motive was simply to give her maybe a shortcut.
Right. Work smarter, not harder.
Right. And so I'm like, I'm not gonna get offended mm-hmm. in that instance. I'm not saying I never get offended, but in that instance, I thought to myself, you know what? I'm giving her this. It's not costing me anything. It's not, it's not cost. So I'm just gonna let it go. And I think though, if I would have went to self-defense mode, mm-hmm. then that could have escalated. Now, I'm pretty sure it wouldn't escalated in nothing big, but I'm just saying.
I probably would have it would have detoured me from thinking about it, thinking about my response on my way back home from dropping Beth to school, because I would have been thinking about how you responded to me. You know, and so another thing that I realized is that I responded that way because I am so freaking hard on myself. Like I am really, really hard on myself, and all those things. Like my brain works overtime. And the question that you asked me that morning was, why do you feel the need to be perfect? And I know that I'm not perfect, but I try to do things right. Not necessarily perfectly, but that's pretty much what it is that, you know, for a number of reasons, I want to make sure that I do things well. The things that I do for my family, when I do my job, do my work, the way that I'm helping people, I want to do that really well. And it's hard for me in my brain when I feel like I haven't done that well. Like nobody has to come and tear me apart because I am constantly critiquing myself, and that's not a good thing. And that's a part of what I've been working on through this whole process of growing. And I know where that comes from, you know. And I tell people this often, and it's something that we've worked on as parents, when is being more patient when people aren't patient with you, when everything that you do is questioned. Just it's a lot, not blaming anyone else, but I'm just saying, like, these are examples of how people become really, really harsh on themselves, or they feel like you have to be the best in your field, or you feel like you have to be the smartest in your class, or if you have siblings and they are making really poor choices, you feel like you need to make only the best choices, you know, because you want to give your parents a break from all the other stuff that there's so many reasons why people become really, really hard on themselves. And so that's something that I have been working on. And I know that these things only, they come up when it's time for them to come up. And so the fact that something that small kind of sent me that morning, you know, it was early in the morning, wasn't fully awake and all that kind of stuff. But the fact that little thing had me feel that way in that moment, and this wasn't like really, really deep and heavier for a long time, but what it brought back to me was that thing that I've been working on. And I think what it helped me realize is that I am growing and healing in that area because I was able to have that resolution really quickly.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely a sign of growth. But, you know, again, we're just bringing this to you guys because I think because I was aware of that and because, and it's not that I'm so great or so deep. It's just it's the same thing I just said because we've been working on it. And so again, when she responded that way, I just like, okay, well, you know, and one thing is we have to learn, it's like we have to get ourselves out of the way, you know, and again, it's like, why do I have to defend myself for something that I know I was not? I know what my intent was. And I say this a lot, unfortunately, in relationships, a lot of times intentions don't matter because of the stuff that your actions get filtered through. And I know that's not fair. It's not fair for me to be genuinely wanting to do something good or say something good, and it gets interpreted through all the other stuff, right? And it takes it's right. It's not fair, but unfortunately, it's reality. But like I said, me going in knowing that, I know now, okay, I know I didn't do anything wrong by suggesting that for the refrigerator.
Exactly. Absolutely.
You know, so therefore I said, you know what? And this is big boy, you know, putting on my big boy pants. It was like, there's no need for me to respond to that. I just left it okay. And I mean, I didn't even say okay. I don't think I said anything. You know, and then like you said, when you came back,
right, we talked about it.
Mm-hmm. You know, there's a scripture I was looking it up, and it's James 1:19. Mm-hmm. It says, "Understand this, my beloved brothers and sisters. Let everyone be quick to hear, mm-hmm. be a careful, thoughtful listener, mm-hmm. slow to speak, mm-hmm. A speaker of carefully chosen words, mm-hmm. and slow to anger, patient, reflective, forgiving." Yeah, that is so good, you know. And you know, there's an account where Jesus, they caught the woman in adultery, and they brought her to Jesus, and they were like, "Hey, Jesus, what you gonna do about this?" Right. You know, and Jesus, the Bible says Jesus bent down and started writing in the dirt. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of people who speculate about what he wrote, and mm-hmm. but the revelation that I got, I asked, you know, I was just reading that one day. I was like, well, you know, what were you doing? And what he spoke to me was this: he didn't know what to say, so he didn't say anything.
How good is that? So
I'm like, wow. And so he waited, and because there's another scripture, I think it's John 5:20. Jesus said, "I don't say anything unless my Father tells me to say it. Mm-hmm. I don't do anything unless my Father tells me to do it." So in that moment, he didn't have anything to say. Right. So he just didn't say anything, and he waited until he got the answer. And I like this. It says, the scripture talks about being reflective. Mm-hmm. And so many times we really don't, and we've talked about this before, mm-hmm. in communication, we don't really, when we're communicating, one of the biggest parts of communication is not the speaking, but it's the understanding. And so when I'm listening to Tanya, instead of me listening to her, a lot of times what we do is we're formulating our response. Mm-hmm. We're not really reflecting on what she's saying. Right. And so, you know, I understand that. So it's like, I know this is what I said, and I know I didn't mean it that way, but this is how she heard it. So again, I knew what my intentions were. So in that situation, I am not the problem. Mm-hmm. Okay. The way she received it is the problem. Mm-hmm. So I can't go in and try to fix that. Mm-hmm. That's on her. Mm-hmm. You got what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
It does. I will say this. No, it's not your job to try to go in and fix it. And you gave me just what I needed. You gave me space. Mm-hmm. And
space and
grace. So that I could, you know, within 15 minutes process what had happened and get to, you know, the root of, oh, okay, this is why I heard that, you know. And it was like, okay, you've been working on this. And so when these moments come, you know, you are coming to a resolve and to your why a whole lot quicker than you would have a long time ago. But I was going to say this, as the spouse, when you have offended someone, you've offended your spouse or anyone, your kids, what have you, even when it's unintentionally, you're not taking responsibility for them being offended, because that's on them. That's a choice. However, coming back in love and reiterating to them, not your truth, but who they are as truth. Does that make sense? So if I am thinking, you know, I'm being hard on myself, you know, feeling like, you know, I'm not doing a great job keeping the house, then a part of showing the support that the woman needs is to come in and say, you know what, babe, you know, I want you to know that I do appreciate what you do, and you do a great job, you know, with keeping the house. And I mean, ladies, make sure he is real, like he not lying. Okay. You got to make sure that, no, I'm saying that she is keep doing her part. Oh, okay. Is what I'm saying. Gotcha. So, you know, but what I'm saying is, so whatever it is, we're talking about that incident, but it could be anything, you know, whatever it is that, you know, you are a great mom, you know, you're doing the best that you can, you know, how can I help? You know, that kind of thing. So no, it's not your responsibility to take on my feelings, or try to fix my feeling, because that's not your job and you really can't do that. If you do that, it's really not fixed, because I'm gonna have to come back to you again to get you to fix it. But offering those types of supports are really helpful.
And so that's after the fact, though, because
that is after the fact.
I wouldn't have even known why. So, but when you came back, I was like, okay.
Exactly.
But I guess my role in that, in the front end, is being able to control my emotions.
Yes.
And not be offended at her response.
Right.
Right. Because, and that's the thing. Somebody,
I'm just trying to help you.
And I'm not saying that she was being childish in that moment, but I'm just saying somebody has to be the adult. I mean, if we both just
in our feelings.
Yeah, and we both go there. Well, and we say stuff, well, if you're gonna go there, I'm gonna go there.
Right.
Then that's for no reason at all.
Smudges on the refrigerator.
Exactly. And that's how we get into. That's how the smudge becomes something.
Right.
Major. Something major. Right. And there was another incident the other night. We were sitting on the couch and I was watching the video, and the comedian said something inappropriate. Thank you. And one of the girls I didn't know she had walked into the kitchen. So Tanya, I can't remember what she told me. She was, but she went to this whole speech about, how you're their standard, and, you've got to set a standard for them, and, whatever. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, but I know all that, but I was offended, and I had to go back and tell her, I said, in this same principle, what I heard, and I know that wasn't your intention. Your intention was to encourage me, but what I heard was you're not being a good father. And I mean, it may not have been, but that's the area of my life that it was attacking. And it's like, I know I'm a good father. Don't tell me that I have to affirm my girls and do all this stuff. I do all of that. So when you're telling me that I'm not, then again, so there is maybe some insecurities there. I want to make sure that, and I guess those are the areas where we feel that we're lacking or we are afraid to fail. Those are the areas that we can easily be offended in.
Right. Well, child.
What?
I was like, well, child, it's like all of the areas, like I am, that has been a thing for me. It's like all of the areas I want to make sure that I do really well in. And I it's just being transparent. I guess it's just coming to that place of just knowing who you are and just being, just be. Yeah, just be. And be confident in that and know that, I mean, of course we're going to grow and we're working, but you don't have to be so, rigid.
I remember there was another instance, where I was I sent somebody an email at work, and somebody emailed me about something at work. So I replied back to that email, and my intention was to copy another person on that email because this wasn't my area. So I copied this other person, but I didn't copy them, and I just hit reply.
Gotcha.
And I didn't add her to the CC, right? And I said, person, her name, could you please take care of this? So the person that emailed me initially responded back to me, said, I didn't see such and such's name on this email. I interpreted that as, I didn't ask them, I asked you. And I tell you what, I was like, boy, and so I read the email separately, and I was like, oh, what he was saying was, I didn't see her name on the CC or to the two. So she's not going to get the email. Right. But again, that's one of those instances where that was me. That person, now maybe they could have communicated that better. Right. But my question to myself was like, brother, why were you so offended at, this, what you mean he gonna tell me? And,
Start typing back real fast.
Right. All caps, exclamation point. But again, that's how we, we have to really slow down and learn to reflect. Be slow to speak, and that's, that's the key. I've seen people, I've talked to people that way, or I've talked to people who do this, and sometimes it looks really weird, but it's like they'll just sit there and listen to you, And then when you finish, they won't respond, and they'll just kind of contemplate.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's a skill that we have to learn.
We have to learn.
And really hear what is being said.
Mm-hmm.
And like Tanya said, the great thing that you did was when you felt that way, you reflected. Why did that offend me so much?
Mm-hmm.
Why when he said that, or when they did that, why did that offend me so much?
Mm-hmm.
I know who I am. I know that I'm a good father. I know that all of that. So why is it that, why did I get upset? Why did I, so and we're all, I think it's something that we all struggle with in some area.
Right.
But the more whole and complete that I can get in those areas,
yes.
the less there's a chance for me to be offended.
Yes.
And that's why I believe that, our perfect example, Jesus, he never got offended.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess he was angry when he chased the people out the temple, but
righteous indignation.
That was one area, but he never, no matter what people said about him, he still was in a position to love people. Mm-hmm. And I think that, I'm not saying that it's, we are to strive to be like him, like mm-hmm. to be Christ-like mm-hmm. is what our goal in life is mm-hmm. to be. So I'm just going to encourage you today that if you find yourself getting offended just by some of a comment or sometimes, or I don't know, if it's somebody telling you, if you do this way, it may save you a little bit more time. Right. And you just like, well, don't be telling me how to do it. Okay. I'm just, I'm trying to help you. Or, mm-hmm. If whatever it is that if it's from your spouse, if it's even if it's from your kid, mm-hmm. Sometimes I think that, we discount what they say. Mm-hmm. But I know who I am. I'm the parent. So, mm-hmm. I always tell my girls, you can always tell me, I want to hear your opinion in a respectful way. I want to hear what you have to say. And I'm not offended. Mm-hmm. I'm not offended by you showing me your way. I'm not offended by you. I'm healed enough to be corrected.
That's good stuff. Yeah. I wanted to offer a couple of things to help with people's communication.
Okay.
Because sometimes when we go to, I know that incident, us in the refrigerator, that was kind of like off the top,
right.
in the moment. But sometimes when we're having difficult conversations or we do need to address something with our spouse, we need to realize that one, we got to give ourselves some space to just process what it is that we need to communicate and how we need to communicate it. And sometimes that will help to ward off some of the offense and the defensiveness and all of those things. Yeah. So I wanted to offer like 4 quick antidotes.
So this is from the person communicating or the person receiving?
Both.
Okay.
So, and this actually is coming from the Gottmans, which they will talk about, share another time. This is from something that they teach, but criticism. This is verbally attacking personality or character. So if you feel verbally attacked, rather that be your to avoid verbally attacking someone's personality or character, you should have what they call a gentle startup. This is Brene Brown says this. She adopted this from the Gottmans. Have a gentle startup. Talk about your feelings using I statements and express a positive need. We've talked about the I statements before, but that looks like, I feel like when the girls are in the room, we need to monitor more what it is that we're watching because we want to set a good example for them and for them to not, think that certain things are okay. Mm-hmm. That's just an example.
Okay.
The other one is contempt, attacking a sense of self and intent to insult or abuse. Build culture of appreciation. Build a culture of appreciation. Remind yourself of your partner's positive qualities and find gratitude for positive actions. So instead of operating in contempt, look for the positive in your spouse so that we're all going to do things that gets on one another's nerves, that, rubs one another the wrong way. Look for the positives in
So
those
when you say
moments.
operating in contempt, can you explain that a little bit more?
If we are attacking the person with an intent to insult. And
Okay.
so I'm trying to think of examples where people do this. I can't think of it like.
So is it being more like, what's the word? Sarcastic?
Yes, could be sarcastic. So, because sometimes people play joke, they're being sarcastic, but they're not. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes, a lot of times, people do that in front of other people, which is even more insulting.
Gotcha.
Defensiveness, victimizing yourself to ward off a perceived attack and reverse the blame. So this looks like, I can't do nothing. Anytime I say something, you always have something to say, or I try to leave the house, or you're always questioning me, that kind of thing. Well, take responsibility. Take responsibility for your actions, accept your partner's perspective, and offer an apology for any wrongdoing. So if you have a track record of wrongdoing, then obviously your partner is still processing through that. And so you need to continuously apologize for your wrongdoing and show them the support that they need through their process. And then the last one is stonewalling. This is when you're withdrawing to avoid conflict and convey disapproval, distance, and separation. So you're refusing to talk. You're avoiding the conflict altogether, refusing to have a conversation. You basically are doing that to show them that you do not approve of them or their behavior or what they said, what they did. You're putting distance and separation in the relationship. Psychological self-soothing is what this is. Is what you need. Take a break and spend that time doing something soothing and distracting. So maybe taking some time away and doing something to self-care for yourself, and then re-engaging with your partner, spouse, what have you.
Okay. So in all of those instances, if you notice that it takes work on both.
Yes.
On both sides, and that's what we're saying is, like, and I'll go back to the refrigerator incident. I had to do the work to realize, okay, all I did was suggest something to clean the refrigerator with. If she is defensive about that's not me. Because I know, okay, I wasn't saying it in a malicious,
right. You were not critiquing.
I wasn't critiquing.
Right.
I was just like, oh, hey, this is cool. This is something I learned.
And I know you like to share your cool things that you learned too.
Yeah. So, but the work that I have to do is to make sure that if you are taking it the wrong way, that I'm not being offended at your stuff. Right. And giving you that opportunity. And I don't know, I don't know if I should have said something in that moment, like, babe, I wasn't saying, you don't have to explain how you cleaned it. I'm not concerned about you cleaning how you want. That's not what I'm saying. I'm grateful that you even attempted to clean it. But I was just saying, this is maybe something you want to try. It works really well. I don't know, maybe if I should have said that in the moment. I don't know.
Are you asking me?
I'm asking you.
You could have. But honestly, that particular morning, a lot of things happening in the mind and in the body. And so you could have said, a number of things, and I could have taken it the wrong way.
Yeah. And again, that's just about knowing, and so my point is, I think I just didn't say anything, and it wasn't like a big deal.
It wasn't.
And I think in the past, when you started not correcting, but saying how you ought to been like, well, man, I'm just telling you. But again, I was like, okay, cool. And then when you came back, like you said, they gave you the opportunity to reflect. And I'm so glad I thought it was done.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was over with.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, it wasn't a huge argument thing, but I just thought, but when you came back and you was like, hey, I realized something, through the conversation, I was like, wow, that's right there. That's growth, for you to come back. And I had let it go. I had forgot about it, but
moved on.
I had moved on.
Mm-hmm.
And for you to come back and say that and have that conversation, which is why I said, we probably need to talk about that on the podcast, because there's a lot of people who are probably struggling with that. And so just remember, two things as the person speaking, that the person hearing, they're not just hearing you, they're hearing their past experiences, they're hearing past relationships, they're hearing their day, they're hearing the morning that they're
had. They're hearing through their hormones.
They're hearing through
all the things.
All that. They're hearing through all of that. So if they respond in a way that's not warranted, then maybe we need to do our due diligence to figure out, okay, I know that wasn't my intent, so what's going on? Is everything okay?
Right.
And that's not an easy thing to do all the time.
No, it's not. It's not.
And then from the other person's perspective is making sure that, or just getting to the place where you recognize, okay, that response was not warranted. I mean, they really wasn't trying to, insult me or critique me, or they were not being sarcastic. So why did I respond to them this way? And it could just be, like you said, the hormonal thing. It's just like, I'm just... or it could be deeper. It could be, like you talked about, the past. It could be a previous relationship. Well, I'm not gonna share that. But anyway, hopefully you understand what you guys understand what we're saying.
I think that
this is just another thing. And here's what I always say, that if you are aware of something, if you know ahead of time that something is going to happen, or you know ahead of time how to respond when something happens, the chances of you responding correctly are that much greater. Yeah. Right. And so that's all we're trying to do, is make you guys aware of this and understand that if the response you get is not the response you expected, then okay, don't freak out. Especially if the other person already is freaked out. I used to say, if we're at 0 and Tanya goes to a 5, I need to go to -5 so we can balance that out. But what happens a lot of times is, if she goes to 5, then I go to 7, because I gotta beat her in my response, and then you at a 7, then I'm gonna go to a 9, and then that's how things escalate. Sure. So it's just like knowing, like the Bible said, be slow to speak. Let me read that again. Let everyone be quick to hear. Be careful, a careful and thoughtful listener, slow to speak, a speaker of carefully chosen words, and slow to anger, patient, reflective, and forgiving. Patient, reflecting, and forgiving. And those three things, patient, reflective, and forgiving. If you could do those three things, man, and I always try to remember, especially like when we're dealing with the kids. So I have a 13-year-old and a 16-year-old. So before I go off, I'm like, what was I like at 13? What was my response like at 13? And sometimes we get so frustrated with our kids, but they're 13, they're 16. Right.
We can't expect them to have a 30-year-old response.
Exactly. So they're having a 16-year-old response. It's up to you to have the 40-year-old response, okay? They're not 40, something. I'll just say that.
Yeah, amen.
They're not 40. They're only 16. So when you respond back, like they respond to you like a 16-year-old, and you respond back like a 16-year-old, who's really the one that needs the correction in that exchange?
Yeah.
Who is it? So, so that's how, we have to go through our lives understanding that concept, is that I know if I'm going to do everything I have to do to stay clean, to do my cleansing. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I do my cleansing, right? And then that way I'm not triggered by things. And when you do this, man, look, when you really get serious about this, even sometimes the things that were intended to trigger you and some of the things that were intended to push your buttons, they're just like, they just can't.
Yeah.
And that's more frustrating to the other person than anything when they try to, push your buttons and they can't, And when they start pushing your buttons, you ask them, is everything okay?
Right. Are you okay?
You all right? Is everything good? You need to talk, So anyway, got anything else to add to that?
No, I think that's that was all good stuff.
Yeah.
I hope that what we communicate is clear, and I want to encourage people that if you ever have a question or anything is not clear to you, ask it in the comments. Respond in the comments, and we will get back with you.
Direct messages. I know we got to do a better job at responding to the direct messages, but we're working on it.
Yes.
Give
us some space and some grace, y'all.
Yeah, that. So anyway, definitely let us know what you think in the comments.
Yep.
So that's all we got for you today. This podcast, and so this is Glenn and Tanya Coleman reminding you that your marriage matters. We'll see you next week.
Bye.